Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stu here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation in Spain, day 304 of the current situation, and it's all about record low temperatures in Spain at the moment, as the thermometer has dropped to -25 in some parts of the country, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. A big thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now, as I said, it's all about record cold temperatures at the moment. Lots of places around the country experiencing temperatures that they haven't seen for a long time. -25.2 degrees Celsius in Molina de Aragon. Spain suffers its coldest night in at least 20 years. Castilla-La Mancha, the Community of Madrid, Castilla, Leon and Aragon are on red alert due to low temperatures which affect 40 provinces. The weather forecasts again are being fulfilled to the letter. Since this Monday, Spain has been immersed in a very intense cold wave, the peak of which was expected around dawn and early in the day this Tuesday, after the coldest night in the whole country at least since the cold wave of 2001. Says Ruben del Campos, spokesman for the State Meteorological Agency, when asked how long it has been since such low temperatures have been reached in a country used to increasingly hot winters. At 9 in the morning, the lowest temperature was measured in Molina de Aragon, Guadalajara, with -25.2 degrees Celsius, followed by Calamocha, Teruel, with -21.3, and Teruel capital with -21. The 10 lowest minimum records exceeded the level of 15 degrees below zero in points in these provinces, as well as in Zaragoza, Avila, Segovia and Cuenca, as of this Tuesday. So record low temperatures there in many parts around the country, and as we saw there, winters in recent years have been increasingly warm, so not many people here in Spain prepared for such a cold snap. Now, you only have to go outside to realize just how dangerous roads and footpaths are at the moment. Lots of people falling over, lots of people slipping due to ice, and the government has asked people not to leave home due to the risk of collapse in the trauma emergency room. The effects of the storm continue to hit part of the country, which is trying to recover after a few days marked by snow, especially in the interior of the peninsula. Do not leave home. The mantra that has been repeated for months as a result of the pandemic is now being intoned with more force because of Filomena. First, it was due to the snowfall on Friday and Saturday, but now the situation may even be exacerbated by the frost and ice sheets that remain on the road. The conditions of the pavement would be complicating traffic on the streets so much that many citizens would be suffering injuries and having to go to the emergency room to be treated, generating an onset of collapse in these emergency rooms. And there are still several days ahead before we can return to normal. So stay at home is the message from the government, because they don't want people collapsing emergency wards because of injuries sustained by falling over on ice. Now, the transport systems here in Madrid and other parts of the country are slowly getting back to normal after a few days of being paralyzed because of the snow and ice. That's good news for people that are traveling, but things are still not 100%, especially when it comes to planes and trains. And we can see here that Barajas Airport is still far from recovering normality, and the AVE or fast train system has begun to work again. Today, Tuesday, all high-speed lines will be circulating, and the gradual recovery of the program frequencies is planned according to the train operator Renfe. Now, fair to say that the snowstorm caught a few people off guard around the country. Politicians are also being criticised for not putting measures in place to stop the country from coming to a halt. But according to this article, politicians have no excuse. The weather forecast is more accurate today than ever. Increased theoretical knowledge, improved observation technologies, and the use of supercomputers make weather forecasts increasingly accurate. Storm Filomena has sown chaos in much of Spain. It is not the first time that a meteorological phenomenon has been able to paralyze a multitude of activities or put obstacles in our lives. But this time we cannot say that we were not warned. The State Meteorological Agency had been warning for days that we were going to suffer a historic snowfall, just as it is now warning that we have several days of intense cold ahead. For this reason, when we have verified the collapse of services and communications, politicians have not been able to hide behind the unpredictability of the phenomenon, as has happened previously, but rather in its historical dimensions. So there you go, weather forecasting today more accurate than it has ever been, and politicians no longer able to hide behind the unpredictability of the weather. Now, with all of these weather dramas going on, the coronavirus has been able to slip under a lot of people's radars in recent days. However, here in Spain, the situation is basically out of control again, and as we can see here, Spain reported 61,422 new cases on Monday, the highest weekend figure so far. Health Ministry representatives are calling for responsibility and saying that citizens had a better time at Christmas than we should have done. Difficult weeks are on their way, warned Fernando Simon, director of the Health Ministry's Coordination Centre for Health Alerts, speaking at a press conference on Monday to present the latest data. In the coming days, an increase in the incidence rate is expected, he added, in reference to the 14-day cumulative number of coronavirus cases per 100,000 inhabitants. This data point is currently at 436, a substantial increase from the 350 registered just 3 days before. The trend is clearly rising and the situation is not promising, he added. The data is not moving as fast as in the second wave, but there is a considerable increase that is being seen day by day, with figures that are already very close to those of the end of October. So 61,000 plus new coronavirus cases here in Spain, as we saw the highest weekend figures recorded since the pandemic began. And as we can see, and as was expected, a lot of people didn't pay attention to the warnings that were given before Christmas, went and did their thing, put their Christmas celebrations above all else, and now we are in the situation that we are in again. Now let's have a look at the health data around Spain by looking at a map of the country in various autonomous communities, starting here with a map of Spain. We can see that the risk level is high, the total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 435. There have been 576 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days. There are currently 16,792 patients hospitalised with COVID in Spain, and there are 2,511 COVID patients in ICUs, which is just over 26% of all ICUs in the country. Extremadura now, which is the number one hotspot on mainland Spain, we can see the total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 1,021. There have been 43 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days, 456 patients currently hospitalised in Extremadura with COVID, and there are 49 patients in ICUs, which is just under 23% of all ICUs in that particular autonomous community. The Valencian community now, the risk level there is extreme. The accumulated incidence rate is now sitting at 516. There have been 153 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days. There are currently 3,200 patients hospitalised with COVID in the Valencian community, and there are 430 patients in ICUs, which is just over 40% of all ICUs in that particular autonomous community. Now, the government's COVID vaccination plan is trying to get back on track. We can see here that the autonomous communities here in Spain are trying to speed up the vaccination plan while infections continue to skyrocket. The autonomous communities are trying to accelerate vaccination while infections continue to skyrocket. Several, including Andalusia, Madrid, Murcia, and the Balearic Islands, have tightened the restrictions to face an increase in infections. The new shipment of 350,000 doses of the Pfizer biotech vaccines arrived in Spain this Monday, despite Storm Filomena. And finally, some news about the furlough scheme here in Spain. As expected, the government has decided to extend the scheme, and we can see here that the furlough scheme will be automatically extended until May the 31st. So some good news there for workers that have been affected by COVID-19 and currently find themselves in furlough schemes, that scheme has been extended until at least May the 31st. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from recent videos. One here from Ali: Spain has got the snow predicted for the UK, unfortunately. Yeah, Ali, thanks for the comment. You're right, we did get a lot of snow here, as we have seen in recent days, various videos that I have done, and all of the images that have flooded the internet of the snow here in Spain. As we saw before, meteorologists rarely get it wrong nowadays, not like before when they used to get it wrong all the time, at least here in Spain, but judging from your comment, they have got it wrong in the UK, and the snow that was predicted didn't arrive. But the snowstorm here in Spain was an absolute nightmare for a lot of people, and I for one wouldn't care if it never snowed here again. One here from Ron: thanks for the update. I am still stuck in Amsterdam for my 3rd day. Just received an email saying that my flight was cancelled again. So looks like I'll be here longer than I expected. Expired PCR tests will stay valid once you're able to get back into Spain. Hope your backyard and street melt away today. Yeah, Ron, thanks for the comment, and sorry to see that you were still stuck in Amsterdam. I imagine that has been a bit of an an inconvenience for a lot of people that were planning on coming to Spain, having the airport shut, or at least the main airport here in Madrid shut down for the last few days. Lots of flights being delayed or cancelled, but as we saw, the airport is slowly starting to open up again. I suppose that PCR test requirement has caused a few headaches for some given the current circumstances, but good to see that they're going to accept an expired one given that it would be almost impossible to get a new one done, I imagine. And regarding the snow in my backyard and on the street, I don't think it's going to be going anywhere for the next couple of days. I think it's going to stay there until at least the end of the week, because that's when we're expecting warmer temperatures, and then it should eventually melt away. That's what I'm hoping for. One here from Tony. Hi Stuart, be interesting to see in a week or so if the intense cold and being forced to stay indoors will have had any effect on the virus. Sometimes strange things happen and we could see the beginning of the end. Just a thought. Yeah, Tony, thanks for the comment. I'm sure that people staying indoors will have a slight effect on the current health situation here in Spain. Not easy to go anywhere at the moment, at least in this part of Spain. However, there are places around the country that haven't been affected by snow, so I imagine that people are still doing what they do in those places, even though nowadays there are a lot of restrictions in place all around the country. So we'll wait and see in coming weeks if we manage to get that incidence rate down. But given what we have seen over the last 10 months or so, I'm not overly optimistic. One here from Stuart. Hi Stuart, I finally got to Calais after the nightmare trip around Madrid to catch my ferry back to the UK. Although no COVID test was required for the ferry crossing back to the UK, it is rumoured that it may be required soon. The Carrefour supermarket pharmacy in Calais does COVID tests for €35 with the result in 15 minutes. A bit of information that may be of use to your subscribers. Kind regards, Stuart. Yes, Stuart, thanks for the comment. Good to see that you were able to get to Calais and catch your ferry. I imagine that travelling through the centre of Spain has been a real nightmare over the last couple of days, and Madrid particularly. There's been a fair bit of work going on over recent days to try to clear the roads. It hasn't been easy, but the army was called in to lend a hand and authorities have managed to clean some of those main roads. And thanks for the information about the pharmacy there in Calais doing the quick PCR test. I'm sure that information will come in handy for many people. One here from Luis Gar. The movies Dr. Zhivago and the Battle of the Bulge were filmed on the outskirts of Madrid. 50 centimetres of snow is not normal in the centre of Madrid, but you get it every year in many little villages around the country. Yeah, Luis, thanks for the comment and the information about those two movies, those two classic movies. I didn't know they were filmed in Spain. I know that there have been a lot of movies filmed in Spain over the years, especially down there in Almeria. They did a lot of westerns back in the day, but I had no idea that Dr. Zhivago was filmed on the outskirts of Madrid. And you're right, there are lots of places in the north of Spain that experience snow, lots of provinces, for example, Soria, Burgos, Valladolid, as I said the other day. Other areas there in the Picos de Europa, very common to see snow. But in this part of the world, Madrid, as you said, it doesn't snow very often. Maybe some years you'll get a light sprinkling of snow, but the snow that we had the other day was due to an absolute freak of a storm. One here from Seamus. Thanks, Stuart. Always love to see your videos before turning off the lights. You are doing a great service for us who really love Spain, especially Andalusia. Sad to tell all, Ireland now has the highest daily COVID cases in Europe. Our enforcement penalties are nothing compared to Spain. Muchas gracias. Saludos, Seamus. Yeah, Seamus, thanks for the comment. Sorry to see that the numbers in Ireland are out of control at the moment. I know that's a common fact in many countries in Europe and North America as well, unfortunately. Here in Spain, as we know, record numbers over the last weekend. Authorities are blaming it on the Christmas effect. Everybody knew that it was going to happen, but people decided to put Christmas first and the health situation second, and that's why we're in the situation that we are currently in. But let's all try to remain positive, everybody out there that loves Spain, like yourself, Seamus, and hopefully soon we'll all be able to travel again to places like Andalusia and get a little bit of warm sun on our body and enjoy one of those chiringuitos down there on the beaches of Malaga or somewhere similar. Let's hope. And finally, one here from Paul Stewart. ¿Tú puedes ayudarme con mi español? Paul, sí, no te preocupes, yo te puedo ayudar con tu español. I will be setting up those Spanish classes soon. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. Just a few things have got in the way and my schedule has been knocked a little off track. But don't worry, I'll get around to it eventually. Hopefully by the end of the month, I will start to help everybody with their Spanish. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.